Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I am Sergey Karnau, QA Automation Engineer at QATestLab. First thing, I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone for joining. Thank you for taking the time of your morning, afternoon, or evening to tune in and join our tech talk. We will now dive into some great content today. For those of you who don't know QATestLab, we have been providing independent software testing services globally for 15 years now. We bring the power of testing and test automation into Agile and DevOps to accelerate enterprise digital transformation. Visit QATestLab.com to learn more about QA trends and solutions for various industries. Now, I'd like to introduce my co-panelist, Nikhil Sharma, who will share his experience and some valuable insights on test automation. Welcome, Nikhil.
Hi, thank you, Sergey. Thanks a lot. Hi, I'm Nikhil Sharma. I'm joining in from Finland. I belong to a company called Qentinel. Just a small update on Finland. There has been like a meter of snow in the last 3 days, so we are very happy about that. But yeah, so I'm from a company called Qentinel. We are a robotic software testing company. We have been in the industry for last 2 decades. For a major part of those 2 decades, we have been offering test automation, called quality assurance services around software, just like QATestLab. But then from last year onwards, we are only a product house now. So we have a software test automation product called Qentinel Pace. And we'll talk about Qentinel Pace towards the end of the webinar. But I'm product manager of that product. And that's something we have built using the 2 decades of our knowledge in test automation. I personally, I've been a test automation engineer for a couple of years. I did a large test automation projects for big clients here, and then for last 2 years, I've been working as a product manager. So I have hands-on experience on test automation and also product development. So, and I'll try to bring both the perspectives to this talk today.
Thank you, Nikhil. I am thrilled to be your partner in crime today. A little bit of housekeeping here. We have got 40 minutes for the discussion and 20 minutes for the questions. Please do ask the questions. We'd love to answer them at the end of the talk. You can ask them in the question tab. And yep, from that we can now move forward. Our topic for the webinar today is test automation in DevOps. We are going to talk about when to automate your testing and when not to. We are going to give you some insights on how to around finding the right tool for yourself. We are also going to share some hints on how to get to speed in test automation and much more. This is our plan for today. Let's set the scene first by building a common understanding of testing in DevOps culture. The DevOps movement was born in 2009. It involves a set of practices meant to bridge the gap between development and operation to secure a mobile, reliable release process. As you all know, DevOps is the latest evolution of the history of changes to software development. Even though the term DevOps is a contraction for development and IT operation, there is still test in there. Waterfall to Agile, Agile to DevOps. Each step has created a corresponding change in the boundaries and nature of testing. In a waterfall environment, QA engineers have sole ownership of test strategy and execution. Though they work with other tech professionals, testing is their role and identity in the team. In an agile environment, testing becomes an activity that the development team owns together. Team members think of test ideas, explore the product, and find issues to fix. It challenges to the traditional definition of testing and ownership of testing as an activity. DevOps takes these challenges further by pushing the development team to engage more widely within their organization. With DevOps, quality becomes everybody's concern. The DevOps model requires testing early and often so developers can fix bugs or vulnerabilities before they are hard baking in the code. Feedback is being sent back at every stage of DevOps pipeline, so we are getting feedback when they run our test and also during the build phase. This is what we call continuous testing. It is a way to boost, speed up, and support the DevOps pipelines. The goal of continuous testing is to run many different types of tests, both manual and automated, continually throughout the delivery process. Successful continuous delivery requires continuous testing. Automation is one part of that. At the end of the day, computers should perform repetitive tasks so people have time to solve problems. Test automation can enable some testing tasks to be performed far more efficiently than could ever be done by testing manually. It enables easy handling of small changes, faster tests, more consistency, and more agility. Testing can happen quickly, repeatedly, and on demand. What are your thoughts on DevOps, Nikhil?
Yeah, thank you, Sergey, for going through this. I will try to bring like a few other very concise thoughts on it. Is like, if you think about DevOps, it's built on three fundamental pillars, and those pillars are flow, feedback, and learning. And if you think it from a point of view, as a slide shows, the whole infinite loop, these are enablers for each other. So there can't be a flow if there is proper feedback, and there can't be flow and feedback if there is not continuous learning. But feedback is where testing has the strongest hold. And through the testing, what we are trying to do is we are intending to provide quick, or the quickest possible, and continuous feedback to developers, as in what they are developing. Is it functionally working? Is it non-functionally working? And trying to bring that end value to the customers. Now, with the whole DevOps and also what the businesses around nowadays, there's an intense pressure to accelerate their release cycles. So you're moving at an insane speed, and now testing kind of holds you in control. So that's the brakes of your car, if you put it in this way. So it's the risk management or safety mechanism when you're moving at those insane speeds in development cycles.
Thank you. However, automation can be tricky to master, especially in complex ecosystem. In addition to selecting the automation platform itself, there is numerous questions regarding what to automate, how, and to what extent it should scale up and out across distributed infrastructure. So, go to next topic. Now let's move to the first point of our discussion, when to automate testing and when not to. So when test automation is a good idea. The obviously precondition to test automation is a large number of test cases. The idea behind it is simple. The more test cases you got, the more time you need to perform regression testing. In this case, testing becomes a bottleneck in software development. However, automation can significantly speed up the whole process. For example, the project I am currently working with involves more than 2,000 test cases, while the whole run takes about 8 hours, 12 streams on 4 machines, 3 streams per 1 machine. As long as there are no significant changes or updates, we get the 99% pass rate. What's more, it takes only a day to complete a test run. We set test running overnight and check the result in the morning. The second precondition is if you have a product that applies complicated logic and requires multiple complex checks that involve the financial aspect, like banking software on online stores. You may need to test the accuracy of calculation, verify that all the elements are present, and so on. Imagine that you need to make sure that the discount on specific goods is calculated correctly. It would be pretty challenging to perform this manually. But an automated test would calculate and check all the values in minutes. Computers never miscalculate. Also, there is always a test case form that includes like 30 fields to fill out. The automated test will always do it correctly, while a human tester can make a mistake. And finally, frequent release is another precondition for test automation. It's simple. The more frequent releases are, the more time it takes to perform regression testing. Test automation, on the other hand, allows cutting down time and effort significantly. Are there any cases you would like to add, Nikhil?
I think you have covered pretty much all the cases that there are. Two that comes to my mind. They are kind of covered in your section, but just to bring them out, one of them is end-to-end, like business end-to-end process testing. So when you think about end-to-end processes, they're often going through across various applications which have different release cycles, and these processes are very business crucial to you. So if they stop to work, it basically translates in you losing dollars right away, or then losing customer traction. And when they're going through a series of applications, those applications individually might be working. For example, if you think of SAP or Salesforce, and those applications individually might be working, but then there is somewhere in that pipeline you have a process that is broken, and hence the whole end-to-end process is broken. That's one place for test automation as well. So if you can use it from a monitoring point of view, so you can have your end-to-end processes and then keep on running. So whenever something breaks, you get to know it before your customers do. The second is this data-driven testing. So when you have, for example, if you have one of our customers, Metso Autotech nowadays, they have a web store wherein depending on where you are accessing that web store from, you have different pricing, different configuration, and whatnot. But the test cases or the process of buying a spare part is same. It's like data-driven testing. So you have same test cases, but then 100 different configuration data to validate your application against. And this is also your test cases or number of test cases, cumulative number of test cases starts to grow exponentially. And this is where I would say robots are better than humans. Though that's my addition to your section.
Okay, thank you very much. If this point is clear, now let's find the under what circumstances to test automation is not that necessary for your product. Case number 1, the product is in the active development phase. Usually it means that the product functionality is unstable and the QA automation engineer would spend all the time updating test cases, not being able to keep up with the team space. As a result, there will be lots of non-updated test cases. At this point, I'd like to emphasize that functionality updates cause no harm and are necessary. Your updates are great. What I'm referring to is a non-stop stream of changes when one use case gets modified 3 times a week or even more often. In my project, when it comes to adding or changing one of the modules, we never hurry with automation everything. First of all, we check it manually according to the tickets from the development team. Then wait for a while, approximately a sprint, and only after that we automate all the other test cases for that module. As I said, it happens because the module is under active development, so requirements as well as functionality get changes too quickly. If the core functionality is barely touched, automated regression testing can be conducted without any delays. Case number 2. There is no need to automate, then the number of test cases in the project is limited. It simply will not pay off. Maybe you could use the codeless system for test automation that will speed up the regression testing. However, when there are less than 100 test cases, manual testing is definitely enough. Case number 3. No automation necessary when you have an app with a large number of test cases that require image identification. The nature of application of this kind limits of completely eliminates the possibility of test automation. The list of such software includes photo editing apps, different games, fitness and yoga apps, augmented reality application, and so on. Case number 4. There is no urgent need to automate if you don't plan frequent deploys. When releases occur once in 3 or 4 months, test automation is impractical. It will be more advisable to perform a code freeze a week or 2 before the release. Manual tester then will be able to check the new functionality, perform regression testing, and update test cases. At this point, I'd like to emphasize that every project is unique, with a unique set of variables. If you are not sure whether automation would be right choice for your product, visit QATestLab.com, fill out the request a quote form, and we will help you make the most of test automation. In your opinion, are there any other areas that don't require automation, Nikhil?
Well, not necessarily. I wouldn't say there are areas that wouldn't require automation, but I would rather phrase it this way: that where should you preferably use humans over robots? And that area specifically now, where we stand with the technology, it is exploratory testing. So exploratory testing is like when testers are testing an application or a specific area of application without any particular given test cases. But it's different than chaotic or random testing, because humans tend to create models of how an application should work and then test through those. So when we are, as a product manager nowadays, what we do with our product is we actually test the development version of our product, or the regression testing of development version of our product with the production version of our product. And then towards the end, before we do the final release, we actually do conduct an exploratory testing session wherein we really do discover a lot of bugs which cannot be found out from regression testing, because a lot of features are new and hence not automated.
Thank you. Let's move to the next topic. How to calculate test automation ROI. Another way to decide whether test automation is the right solution for a project is by calculating the return of investment it brings. Return of investment, or ROI, is a financial measure for calculating investment profitability. ROI is typically expressed as a percentage. An ROI of 25% means that a $100 investment will bring a $25 payback on the initial investment in 1 year. Automated testing requires a higher initial investment. But as a test automation practitioner, I've already witnessed a range of long-term cost benefits, including early bug detection, lower spending on test development, and faster results through the parallel development. ROI is usually calculated using this following formula. ROI equals manual QA cost minus QA automation cost and divided by QA automation cost. However, with the advent of Agile and DevOps, the classic method no longer works. Moreover, such as measurement is unrealistic, since the number of manual tests cannot match the number of automated ones. Luckily, there are more advanced ROI calculation techniques. You can take a look at them now. Since automation test cases can keep running all day long, ROI calculating is performed in terms of days. On the other hand, when it comes to manual testing, only the working hours of tester are counted, which is usually 8 hours. Note that the period of ROI is defined by the number of weeks for which ROI is to be calculated. Division by 8 is done wherever manual effort is needed. Division by 18 is done wherever automation is done. As you can see from the slide, it would be a mistake thinking that test automation ROI is a simple comparison of time and cost spent on manual and automated testing. There is countless factors on need to consider, and each of them has pros and cons. What's more, you cannot calculate ROI with a single formula. There are several options to choose from. Just base your decision on the business and product requirements. What's your opinion on the importance of calculating test automation ROI, Nikhil?
Well, sure, it is important to calculate your test automation ROI, and these formulas are great, but then I think they give a rather reductionist understanding or benefits of test automation. For example, something which is probably very hard to calculate or embed into these formulas is the opportunity loss. So given that with test automation, let's say you can accelerate your release cycle 10 times, which means you can have 10 times more releases than you could do earlier, which could translate into you getting more customers or more revenues in, because now you are able to deliver those features faster and with a higher frequency. And even though if you would have increased 10 times of your manual testing capacity, you wouldn't just be able to achieve that. And that's an opportunity cost of not having test automation, and that's something that businesses should think from a rather holistic point of view when it comes to calculating return on investment of test automation.
Thank you. Also, Nikhil will tell you more about test automation tools and how to choose the right one for your particular needs.
Yeah. So, well, Once you have decided to embark on this journey of test automation, the next thing you will be doing is evaluating the choices of right automation tools. And that's a tricky one, given that there is a lot of test automation tools that are out there, and not only commercial, but also open source frameworks. And the old wisdom stronghold here, as in start from what is actually that you need before you go out, look out for solutions, because that will confuse you probably. All right, so things to start from. First of thing, do an internal assessment around your system under test, right? Think about what are the applications that you will be testing, and don't think only from the current pressing need, but also think our future application development is going to be, and thus, for example, you might have only a web application at this point, but in future you have plans to do a mobile application, and hence you would consider, okay, we have two different needs that we should be addressing with our test automation tool. Then what are the platforms they are running on? Is it a desktop? Is it a mobile? Is it web? And then are your needs specifically in functional testing, or is it also non-functional testing like security, performance, load testing? And then also whether your system under test is accessible over open web, or is it behind firewalls, because that's also will determine on the choice of your product and also the infrastructure that you're going to build around test automation. Second, think about who are your testers and where are they located. So are your testers purely a technical crowd? Is it more like business crowd, or is it a hybrid of them? And then with the given COVID situation, more and more think about, are your testers located somewhere in an office, or are they distributed over the world? And hence you would probably need a platform which is collaborative enough to do test automation. Third is like your in-house capabilities. So whether as a company your core proposition is around building test automation or maintaining test automation. So then the question would be like, how do you want to do it? Do you want to build it all by yourself from scratch, as against how much do you want to outsource the testing needs to companies like QATestLab, or then how much do you want to buy managed products like Qentinel base, for example? And then speed is of the crucial importance here, the crux of it. And hence one thing to question is, how long will it take for your team to become productive with the tools and the products of your choice? So given that you make a decision now, to the point when you can create your first test case and run it in production, are you looking at months, weeks, days? And that's very important, because that tells a lot about the product itself. And finally, no application stands as a standalone application anymore. You probably have a wide network of applications talking to each other through APIs and integrating with a bunch of other applications. So look for a solution which is not closed wall or Windows. Look for a solution which is appendable, integrable. There is a significant ecosystem around it, and that's how you will foolproof your future or fail-proof your future, and you will not hit that wall where you're like, okay, we can't integrate anymore, or the integrations are creating a maintenance burden. So a lot of those questions, but these questions are important before you start on this journey. What is, Sergey, your favorite tools of automation? What do you use in your work for doing test automation?
Okay, first of all, I use programming language, Java, my main programming language, and some additional instruments like JUnit for test framework and Selenium for connecting to browser of your PC, and Appium for mobile devices, and some like additional instruments to make my task better and quicker. Some like it, but this is my main instruments.
Yeah, and this makes complete sense because I understand you are very technically competent person. For example, I wouldn't be able to use those languages. I would rather look for a more low code techniques. And but anyhow, then we move forward towards. Let's move further in the slides. One thing that companies often go through is a discussion between whether to choose the open source solutions available, bunch of them Sergey mentioned, or then to look for commercial products. And there's a wide variety to choose from in both the categories. To name a few, open source, you have Selenium, which is quite well known, Robot Framework, which actually is from Finland and was initially conceived at Qentinel, Tescafe, Cypress, and then you have commercial products like Tricentis, Planorex, SmartBear, Qentinel Pace, etc. And often the debates are around a few of the topics. For example, a stronger preference for open source comes from the developers and testers because there is a rather significant ecosystem and community around open source, and you can also contribute to it, and also kind of in a way request for through your contributions or through being an active member of the community that where should that product will go, which is slightly trickier with commercial products. Then think of, often people say, well, open source is for free. Well, yes and no. And the initial cost might appear to be free for open source, but when you think about cost of ownership of the open source versus commercial product versus total cost of ownership, so it may be so that when you have this open source framework that you're not paying anything upfront as a license or as a monthly fee or annual fee. But if you think about when your test automation starts to scale, when you're doing a lot of testing in and out, day in, day out, and building infrastructure, maintaining it, the total cost might surpass the cost of a commercial product. So it really depends on also the competence that you have in your organization. And with the commercial products, then the product offering company is responsible for the maintenance and development of their product, and customers just have the access to up-to-date offerings as part of their subscription or extra licenses. One thing where open source excels is the flexibility, because they're more flexible. They have an ecosystem around it. There's a rather large room for customization, as against commercial products, which tend to be rather more rigid than open source. But also with flexibility comes, with all the customization you can do, also comes the cost of maintaining it. And then there is, of course, business often worry about vendor lock-in with commercial products, which happens to be there. So these are the things that how do you look at open source versus commercial products? And then there is product like Qentinel Pace. What we have done is that we are built on a lot of open source, and it tries to combine best of both the worlds, tries to bring in the power of open source ecosystem, communities, flexibilities, and also the managed service side of commercial products. So you don't have to worry about all the maintenance and related tasks when you have Qentinel Pace, but you can also, on the same hand, you can also leverage the power of open source. What's your take on it, Sergey? Like, do you have a preference of, well, you did mention all the open source tools, though, what you use, but what is your preference there?
In general, I use open source products. I'm a little bit fan of Linux and some other open source products, but sometimes I use commercial products. For example, TestRail. It's a great system. We use it for reporting and for work with our test cases, and it's commercial product, but it's really a great commercial product.
So let's move forward towards the one of my favorite topics. So one of the biggest and treacherous test automation be something that you wouldn't think of, you wouldn't know of, is maintenance. And this is often overlooked and undervalued aspect of test automation, because when you start your test automation journey, you're not thinking about it. The things that you're thinking about it is how many tests you can automate and how quickly you can automate them. And all the metrics that are measuring your success are around the number of automated test cases and bugs found by automated tests. But once you start scaling your test automation, when you start scaling the number of tests you have, number of platforms those tests are running on, and then there are changes in the application, then you have the vulnerabilities, or not vulnerabilities, but rather dedicated term in software industry. But if you have flaky test cases, or the platform which is on which they are running changes, or then the infrastructure starts to become corrupt, or you have a lot of people working on test automation. So from one person, it starts to become a cross-stream collaborative effort. That's when you realize that the maintenance beast starts to grow. And in our experience of close to 2 decades of building really large-scale test automation infrastructures, and doing case studies from different customers, we have realized that often that test automation maintenance is consuming or eating up 60 to 80% of your efforts. And that's a lot of time wasted, and this time and the opportunity wasted, because you could have been writing new test cases or building something else than maintaining your test automation. So in short, the maintenance actually often arises from flaky tests, corrupted test environments, poor test management, and test automation rigidness in certain places. 3 tips that I can give here to reduce that maintenance or tame it is that think of your test environment automations. So instead of making it a manual process, think of infrastructure as service or infrastructure as a code, where you can deploy these test environments whenever you need them. You can scale them up. You can always start from fresh, and you can always maintain them in a way that it's automated and it never gets corrupted. And this will pay off very well in the long run to you. Second is, don't treat your test as a secondary citizen. Treat it as you treat your code, hence version control it. So you have a proper traceability, you understand who is contributing what, and kind of encoding the best practices of doing software development also in testing. And then remember that maintenance is directly proportional to the number of tools or technologies or products you're going to use. So try to reduce the number of products or technologies that you're going to consider, because and hence look for products which can kind of like take care of your test automation needs to a large extent. So Dave, what's your take on maintenance?
No, I can say that only it's always helped me. So I have not any bad experience with it.
Okay. Yeah. And then yeah, so if we move forward to how to get to speed in test automation. Yeah. So this is a tricky one, and I would say don't try to boil down the ocean and take Sergey's advice on what to automate and what not to automate, which he was talking about earlier in this webinar. So automate things that you understand are needed to be automated, and not the other way around. Then second advice would be try to avoid doing it all by yourself if your core business proposition is not test automation. Because it's not a one-time effort, and there's a lot around it, and you will need to maintain it going forward. And you would rather be focusing on your core business rather than focusing on test automation. And a product like Qentinel can really jumpstart your test automation initiative with a ready-to-be deployed platform and help you scale accordingly. And then you can leverage services like QATestLab, who have extensive competence in creating automated test cases. Sorry, my webcam froze, so I restarted that. And then third is measure your progress, because there's no other way you can know whether you are progressing or not if you're not going to measure it. And I'm not against measuring these rather known metrics, for example, number of test cases or error found, etc. But you could also be creative in measuring, and you could measure like the amount of time it takes to become productive with a product, or the amount of time it takes to create a test case. I understand that test cases vary, but some kind of like normalized way of finding out like how difficult it is and how is it progressing over the period of time. And then one thing that you could also measure is the maintenance effort. So all the time that is going on in doing tasks besides writing automated test cases, measure it. And just to drop like an example here, Finnish Tax Authority uses our product to do test automation, and they run around 18,000 test cases every day, which is close to 500 hours of test automation. So they have a lot of robots running in parallel. It's a very complex system, and they have been measuring this maintenance over 2.5 years, and they have reported like a maintenance of 15%, which is a very small number, and it has been helping them to understand like, okay, so we are doing really good job if our maintenance is so low, and like how can we again like reduce it further. So yeah, that's my take on how to get to speed. Sergey, do you have something to add here?
Thank you. First of all, I just want to say that I absolutely agree with you. And also, maybe for example, I can say more than you will select some technology, for example. But best way if you have API and start from API, and after this only for UI, because it's make possibility to you to have better before and after steps for your auto test. So if you want to start and you have API, the best way is start with API auto testing, and after this use UI tests, something like it. But for now, that's all.
All right, so, then we can move.
Yeah. Yes, we can move forward. How to report. Now let's learn more about test reporting. Of course, reporting is crucial, and we need to get the most comprehensive information regarding the result of our automated tests. There are various reporting tools available, such as TestNG, Allure, or TestRail, which allow uploading results directly into the test run. What's more, test automation tools often offer their own option for reporting. There are a list of requirements for reporting tools that includes the following. First of all, the tool you choose should demonstrate all the launched test cases with execution results. Secondly, it should offer the possibility to filter, sort, and group test run results. Then it also provides screenshots, video, or source page code, or each of them or all. Next, there should be charts and graphs that would show the test run results. And finally, the chosen tools should allow converting the test run results into PDF or other formats. Besides, there is possibility to report results to a test case or ticket management system like TestRail or Jira. Nikhil, could you tell us more about the tool you've been referring to? How converting is the terms of reporting?
Yeah, I will. Yeah, should we go to the next slide then? Same time. Yes. So been referring to Qentinel Pace, and as I said earlier, it's built on a lot of open source technologies, and robot framework is at the core of it. So that's the engine that we use, and for this reason that it has a very growing and active ecosystem, and it was initially considered Qentinel. So what we have is a cloud-based, hyper-scalable test automation platform wherein we have taken, so it's a collaborative platform. You can access it through your browser, open it, run test cases in it, and have the history of results there. As Sergey was saying, videos, screenshot, test data, test result analysis, all that in place, and for the eternity of the project. So when you start running, when you create a robot, start running test cases, then from the day one, when you run your first result, till the day that you're going to delete that project, you have the results there and the trends and whatnot. As it's a cross-platform test automation tool, so what we are trying to do is we are trying to address all the platforms with it, desktop, native applications, mobile applications, and web applications. So you can create test cases for all these platforms and run them in cloud at scale. Then you can increase those, scale those robots up with clicks, and then you can delete them when you don't need them. And the infrastructure is all the time we keep it sane and in good health. That's part of the service that we provide. And then the test cases that you create are created using our own proprietary way of doing it called Pacewords. You can go look at the website and try it yourself. But Pacewords is like this highly intuitive, very English-like way of creating test cases. For example, if you're clicking something on a screen, then you say click text, for example, introduction on this slide, and then it will click text introduction on that slide. And now this introduction could be on a web page, it could be on a mobile device, it could be a desktop application. You will still use the same password. So it's a very efficient, very maintainable, very robust way of doing test automation. And then behind the screens, it uses a lot of layers of technologies like computer vision, Selenium, APM, and a lot of our own code on how to handle these things, and smart fallback mechanisms and self-healing capabilities. But there's a lot I can talk about, about Qentinel Pace. But what I would recommend you is to go look at our website, qentinel.com. We do offer a free personal plan for everyone in the world, anywhere with a valid email address. And that plan is for free and it's for eternity. So once you have it, you can use it for as long as you live. And you can try it out yourself, run your test cases, and give us feedback on how you like the product. And if you want to also learn on how to do test automation using Qentinel Pace or also in general, then we have an online academy. You can navigate it through qentinel.com and then sign up, and that's for free. So, well, make the best out of it.
Thank you very much. So, that brings us to the end. I will pause here to see if we have any questions, and as I see, we can several. So, first of all, it is not a good idea to do automation for progression cases, like development is done, but still testing is not done. So if development phase is done and we are doing automation, then can it check corner cases? Do you something add here, or I can answer for this?
Please go ahead.
Okay. First of all, automation for application in support phase, it's a good idea because if you have a lot of different test cases. For example, when application in support phase, you can stable functions, and test cases will be changed very rare. So you can use automation, cover all or most of your test cases, and save time for you manual testers. And manual testers can save time for adding new test cases, check some different important things in your project. Also, when you work with automation test cases, you have possibility to use the same page object when we use automation testing in code, I mean with code. We have page objects, and if you want to add, for example, negative scenarios, it takes much less time, for example. So as for me, it's a good idea, and I can say more that as usual, automation testing use only after main development core phase finished, because for nowadays all application always in development phase, always, but in usual some module can be added or something like it. So as for me, it's good idea. Next question: is it possible to test databases directly without API? Can you add something?
Well, it's very unclear to me, like this question, but if it is around Qentinel Place, I'm pretty sure it's doable, but that would probably need to build like a layer of communication between that database and Qentinel-based robots. And that's the flexibility part of the product, because we, although I mentioned that it's testing like mobile, web, and desktop applications, but you can also test, for example, automotive industry AUTOSAR standards by building that middle layer. Yeah.
Okay, I can add something a little. I think it's possible, but can be complicated for big databases, because my idea is possible, for example, install this database on local PC and make code just for work with this database. So we have experience with working with database, but in general, I think we need to more technical details about it. So, yeah. But in any case, maybe possible to find some way for this.
Yeah. Then there is a question on: does your tool support automated testing on SAP-based UIs? Oh yes, it does. It indeed does. And whether it's a S/4HANA web-based GUI or whether it's a desktop thick client, it does support test automation in both.
Understood. So next one. Have you ever created your own databases for the purpose of testing? Can you answer something, or I can?
I have personally not created a database for the purpose of testing, to what I remember, but I have worked in a project where such a database was created, and the reason was that we didn't want to corrupt the production database. That's one way of doing it. Another is data masking. So there are technologies which can kind of mask those data, and then you can use that data for your testing purposes in production. Kind of my memory is failing me, but there's a company that we cooperate with called Delphix, if I'm not wrong, and they are they have a very good competence in data masking.
Understood, and I think I can add something. First of all, in Autotest, as usual, I don't create a database for testing data. We use some other types of dates of data. For example, I like for users use enums because it's definitely enough. I had one task when I create databases and do some make some calculation and compare my result with result from remote database. So yes, I created it's if this not big and not so complicated database, it's possible. Also possible to use database from project, but with clear dates, because as usual QA create own dates. We don't use any user dates in testing purpose. And looks like this all for now about questions. Can you add something for the end?
Sorry, which thing?
Looks like this all questions what we have, and maybe you want to add something.
Well, I only see the questions that I have asked and you have asked, so I'm not sure what else can I add now.
Okay, so thank you, Nikhil, and everybody who watching. Thank you very much for joining us. From the zone, I conclude our webinar. If you have questions later, feel free to reach out to us on the emails on the slide.
Yeah, maybe you can switch the slide to where we have the email addresses. Yeah, that's it.
Yes. So.
Yeah, the same from my side. Thank you guys a lot for taking out your time. Thank you, Sergey, for the really good discussion. Here's our contact information. You can reach out at info@qentinel.com or then directly to me. Yeah, and then have a good day, everyone, and bye.
Have a good day, everyone. Bye.